Hello and welcome to another episode of Breaking Mayberry, the show where we watch old television to find out why your grandpa's brain is broken. I am your host, Marty Schneider, one of them anyway.
I'm the other one, Dan Ludwig.
And we have a special guest today, our legal counsel, Ian Roberts, comes back to the second time.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Just making it clear, I'm not your legal counsel, but I'm your friend.
You are my phone call if I ever get arrested.
Yeah, no, we
I'll
want that to be clear. Ian Roberts does represent us, and everything that I say here. Legally, this is admissible in a court of law.
Okay.
If any legal complaints against Breaking Mayberry should be addressed to the offices of Ian Roberts.
We'll put his phone number in the show notes, his personal phone number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before we get started today, a couple of things I want to talk about, a couple of announcements. By the way, special thank you to our new Twitter patron, Jack, who just jumped in today and has now access to all of the bonus material, including the Andy Griffith fanfic episode we recorded last week.
A thing we sure did.
It's definitely a thing that happened.
Yeah.
Special thanks to Jack, and also special thanks to somebody we should have mentioned months ago, Patreon patron Sorry, who also is contributing and also has access to all that good extra content.
Plug the content more.
Yeah, if you want to help support Breaking Mayberry on Patreon and have access to early episodes and bonus episodes and deleted scenes, etc., you can go to patreon.com/breakingmayberry. Or if you want to help support us in a way that doesn't involve actually giving us money, totally understood, you can still help us out by telling your friends, subscribing and liking on iTunes so that we get into different algorithms and get into more people's ears, and really help us out by leaving us a nice little review. Only the nice ones.
Don't hurt us.
Speaking of nice reviews, our other patron, Ingrid, on Twitter, was at Ingrid_Atkinson.
That sounds right.
Said something real nice about us on Twitter. I want to give us a shout out. She mentioned that for the past couple of years, she's been struggling and living with a mother who has terminal cancer, and she wanted to bring in some positivity and talk about all the podcasts that she's recommended to her mom. And we're on the list for some reason. We're number 1 on the list that she recommended.
Utterly humbling. Like, incredibly humbling.
I don't really know.
That is very humbling, especially since we're trashing a show that she might have used to watch.
Oh, absolutely.
That is explicitly, yeah.
That's exactly what she said, as a matter of fact, because she was born in 1951.
Okay.
So, thank you, Ingrid, and thank you to Ingrid's mom. We wish you all the best, and thank you for listening. We really appreciate it, and you are wonderful.
Thank you so much. Cannot express adequately.
Yeah, we were pretty well thrown for a loop on that one.
Yeah, completely blown away.
That is it for the house cleaning and stuff.
The house is cleaned.
So today, we brought Ian on for his legal expertise, and also because he's a great guest and a great guy to have.
His sparkling
Thank
personality.
you for my sparkling personality. I'll take that.
Yeah.
So we're going to kick off today's shenanigans with Season 2, Episode 4, Mayberry Goes Bankrupt, directed by Uncle That Just Found a Quarter Behind Your Ear, Bob Sweeney.
Bumbling World War II General, Bob Sweeney.
And written by Jack Ellenson and Charles Stewart. Originally airs October 23rd, 1961. As always, here is our one-sentence summary from Wikipedia. Andy is forced to evict an old man for failing to pay back taxes, but he finds a century-old savings bond among the man's possessions, which has grown to an outrageously high value. Dan, do you want to set the stage for us in the first scene?
It opens with yelling. A bunch of just random mustachioed white guys are in the mayor's office just yelling incoherently.
Like, this is one of the first episodes I've watched where we see the mayor, and I remember when I first was on here, you mentioned that he's a rarely seen egg-shaped man. He is indeed egg-shaped.
He is adorable. He is Winnie the Pooh.
We love the mayor.
The mayor!
So wait, my impression of the group of white guys yelling at the mayor, though, is that they were the city council, or that they're bank employees. So I'm wrong, they're not the town council?
Well, the town council is basically whoever is in the room with the mayor at the time.
Okay.
There was a big election episode. There was a big deal about a woman running for town council, and then it turns out...
I guess she didn't win?
No,
she evaporated into thin air.
Yeah.
She's not on the show anymore.
She won despite voter suppression, and then promptly was written out of the show and never named again.
Yeah. She who must not be named.
But yeah, no, it started out as a joke that, like, oh, the town council or the government of Mayberry, whoever is in the room with the mayor.
Okay.
And it started out as a joke and has rapidly become very, very true.
It's canon now.
Yeah, none of these guys have ever been seen before.
And we don't see them again.
Yeah, sometimes the city council is just two old white men. It's always old white men.
Yeah.
It's like a weird, like, oligarchy of wealthy white men of Mayberry who just yell at the mayor and he just goes like, you all have authority, I assume. That's why you're in here.
But it should be noted that one of the men that's in this room is, like, the head of the town bank, and that's relevant.
And the town treasurer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, which sounds like a conflict of interest to me.
In a town that's full, that just racks those up.
That's how they run on that. Right?
Yeah.
It's a form of currency in
Mayberry. You're not somebody in Mayberry unless you're
wildly corrupt.
Yeah, a massive conflict of interest. But yeah, so it's a cacophony of rich white dudes screaming at the mayor, and Andy is just kind of like standing off to the side, as he often does during government meetings, just sort of like
wishing he didn't have to be there.
Exactly, just kind of like brow furrowed, just kind of like staring angrily at the proceedings.
Democracy in action.
This like
weird... It'd be so much better if I could just do things. I tend to solve things already myself. Why do we even need this egg-shaped man?
Soon you will all be consolidated.
That was a very Tennessee Williams-esque portrayal of Andy.
That was an Andy Griffith who sits on his front porch talking about how it's good to own land. Yeah, the most sinister Andy Griffith rendition we've had so far. But yeah, so just a bunch of old men yelling, and then eventually emerges from this yelling the topic of the conversation, Frank
Myers.
Frank Myers, who is behind on his mortgage, is up to his eyeballs in debt to the bank.
Yeah, they say that he hasn't paid taxes in the past 8 quarters, and I feel like you could have just said 2 years.
Yeah, you could have.
That's way easier to say, but he's 2 years behind in paying like property taxes, and also his house is an eyesore.
Well, they're like they're bank employees. They're not people. They think in terms of quarters.
That's fair.
About his fares, his house is not just an eyesore. I guess we haven't technically gotten to his house yet, but I have things to say about his house.
But they're like, it's really the thing that sticks out. They're like, hey, he's behind on his taxes, and his house is ugly. And like their big thing they're freaking out about is apparently there's one road into Mayberry, and you have to pass. Yeah, you have to pass his house to get in. So he's like, everyone's seeing his disgusting ass house and assuming that we're a bunch of backwoods hicks because his house is gross.
Well, that actually makes sense when you see his house. Like they kind of have a point.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, it should definitely be condemned.
But it's still that weird thing of like money doesn't matter in Mayberry. The only thing that matters is appearances.
Right.
Like,
it's very weird because like they're trying to make the case that money does matter, but yet it feels like they'd be willing to cut him a break if he were like in keeping with the town's rural aesthetic.
Yeah.
Again,
more Hot Fuzz connections.
Yeah.
So to be clear, Andy's being asked to evict Frank.
Because they don't want to keep mollycoddling him. I just loved that phrase, and I made sure I had to write that down. I'm like, mollycoddling?
Stop mollycoddling the man, yes.
Yeah, and they say, like, you're wasting your sympathies. Like, really, really cold.
Yes.
And Andy's just like, I don't want to fucking evict... Andy says he's had a run of bad luck, and they're saying, like, well, tough shit. His house is ugly.
This is the second time we've seen Andy have to serve an eviction notice, by the way.
Yeah.
Really?
To be clear. And worked out about as well for the last guy, too. So.
Okay.
To, like, the show's credit, I do like, as a feature of Andy Griffith, that he fucking hates serving eviction notices.
Yeah, he doesn't want to do it.
Which a lot of small-town sheriffs, I imagine, is just like, oh, the fun part of the job.
Right.
Right.
Hell yeah!
I might get to tase someone today.
Alright, so Andy reluctantly goes to Frank's house.
Which looks like it belongs to Leatherface. Like, you could seriously take a still, like an establishing shot from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and put it in the opening credits. When you saw this house, there's junk everywhere. Looks like there could be burning tires off screen, and there's randomly animals. Like, he's not a farmer.
They're just a bunch of chickens. This is, I don't know, probably the 6th or 7th time we've seen chickens on this show. And I feel like the CBS studios just had a real good deal, or just like a real shitty contract maybe, with the chicken handler. And it's just like, every 3rd episode, I get to put my chickens in.
There was like a studio exec who would just be like, I worry that people won't get that it's in the South. Can we add more chickens? just hucking chickens into the scene, like, do another.
Yeah.
Do another.
So
Southern. It's Southern now.
To be clear, like, Andy can't sit down because there's chickens on the couch.
Yes, yeah, he has to, what's the name of the chicken? Like, there's like a recurring chicken that's always in the way.
It was
Louise?
It was like Louise,
yeah.
He's just like wandering around yelling at chickens. It's been he's like the only person in Mayberry who isn't a farmer, and he has the most chickens. Mm-hmm. Like, very weird arrangement. Kind of a gonzo situation going on.
Yeah. So Andy has to deliver the eviction notice, and he keeps bugging Frank, like, isn't there any way you could get the money? You know, and Frank's... This is a kind of funny bit where Frank says that business was bad, and Andy's like, you can change your business.
Right, because his business is... quote-unquote, berries, making plastic berries for women's hats, and he's really weirdly fixated on it.
Yeah.
He says that it's going to come back into fashion any day now. Which is, like, immediately I feel like it's supposed to, like, set you off on the tone of, like, okay, well, fuck Frank a little bit, but I was just kind of like, man, this guy's too crazy to take care of himself.
All that told me is that Frank does not have all of his facilities.
Yeah.
I've got my finger on the pulse of America, Andy.
Yeah. He's like starts showing him hat bears. It's like the kind of, like, really weird, super specific career path that a crazy person comes up with.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna design artisanal shoelaces. Like,
It is an eccentric business model that only works if you already have money.
Right.
Yeah. That's a trust fund baby job.
Yeah.
So one thing that I'm a little bit unclear on is just the basis of this, because it sort of sounds like a tax foreclosure, but it sort of sounds like he's behind on his mortgage. Like, usually what happens is that the bank that collects the mortgage also collects taxes, like that's included in the mortgage payment that you do, and they pay taxes for you. If you already paid it off, it's not like the city can just repossess your house. They, do like separate things. It's like a lien on the property because the taxes follow the property, not the person.
I mean, this whole thing would have to go through a judge, correct?
If he wanted to fight it and dispute it, then it would go in front of a judge. It's hard to determine because not only is this 1961, but it's also TV land. So it's unclear what exactly the due process is here. And as we've talked about on the previous episode where I've appeared, due process doesn't really exist either in TV land, like North Carolina, or maybe in actual North Carolina in 1962. So yeah.
I wonder if this is a thing where just like Stewart and Ellenson, obviously not having any legal expertise whatsoever, are just using the phrases mortgage and taxes kind of interchangeably with each other.
I mean, they're kind of using it loosely, but it does kind of sound like he's just behind on his mortgage and the bank is taking it, but there's no reason the mayor should be involved in that.
They do mention that the bank keeps giving him loans and he's behind on all of the loans.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they have, like... But I think they are just kind of using all these terms as just like house money.
Yeah, it's kind of a word salad of different things.
I mean, if you want to question for why the mayor's there, like maybe it's because the mayor is the only person who technically has any authority to tell Andy to do something.
That's true.
So,
the only time that they haven't used Andy as the town judge, they used the mayor.
Okay.
Yeah, which again, conflict of interest, but fucking whatever.
Yeah, pretty weird there.
Yeah, but yeah, so they sit down and he starts like trying to help Frank figure out his finances. Frank has absolutely no handle on the severity of the situation.
Oh yeah, he handles impending homelessness pretty well.
He really does not seem like he knows what is going on. Like this makes me sad. This is a man who is an old man who is not fully cognizant of the world around him.
Could this be the first unknowing television depiction of like dementia or Alzheimer's?
Definitely seems like it. Like he has a very he's not there. He has like only it seems like a 30% understanding of the world around him at any
maybe
given
45.
time. 45. Give him a charitable 45.
Yeah.
And the thing that bummed me out was like Andy at no point is like, so do you have any family? Like, do you have kids or a brother or anyone that can, like, help you out? He's just like...
just me and these chickens.
Yeah, he's just like, what parts of your house can you sell? Like,
yeah.
He immediately jumps to just like, let's just start, like, getting rid of, like, anything that you have to get money.
That's of value, yeah.
Yeah. Just, like, start selling off Frank's life for scrap.
Andy does issue the eviction notice, and he apologizes, and Frank thanks him and forgives him. Next scene.
Wait. Aren't they still, like, going through his box of stuff then? Oh, no, that's later.
Okay,
that's in the next scene. Okay, you're right. Okay.
I do also want to mention, Frank is adorable.
Yeah,
the actor who plays Frank is just delightful.
Was he in something else?
So he's best known for... he's another one of the Western guys. This show's gone through a lot of, like, Western character actors.
Okay.
So most known as a character in the Hopalong Cassidy movie series.
Okay.
And he was also the farmer that was like the dad on Lassie.
Okay.
Okay.
Wait, he was the dad on Lassie?
I think so, yeah.
That's kind of the main character.
Yeah, that's like his claim to fame, I guess. I mean, he's like the best like actor they've had on in a minute, I think.
Nope, you know what? Never mind. Reading this now. He's like he's like the neighbor character.
Oh,
on Lassie.
okay.
Never
yeah.
mind.
So he's
yeah.
But yeah, like Frank is adorable. He's like pretty good actor. Like
yeah, decent actor.
Yeah,
with a bit of a pedigree. I'm not gonna say not the best actor we've had, because that's definitely Jean Harlow from Andy and the Woman Speeder from the last episode.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, scratch that.
She was Academy Award nominated.
Yeah, never mind.
All right, so the next thing, they're on the porch. We're back on Andy's house, and he's on the porch
with Aunt B and
Opie.
Yeah.
And Opie's kind of like absent-mindedly playing with some toys or whatever.
Just like bashing toy soldiers together. And
Andy is like got his guitar out, but he's not really playing. He's just kind of like, he's not even tuning it.
He's just
kind of like
strumming?
He's just kind of like plinking around, basically. Yeah. He's not playing an actual song. And there's a reason I'm mentioning that.
Okay.
And we'll get to that in a second. But basically...
Ominous.
Yeah. Basically... Aunt B and Andy are like just saying, "Oh, it's a shame that you had to evict him," and they're talking about the situation. And Opie, so this is like a real like out of the mouths of babes kind of thing that old people love to do. And Opie says,
"Pa, what's evicting?" What's evicting?
Oh, that means turning somebody out of their house. I tried to get the council to stall, but
Why?
Well, for not paying no taxes. The law says if you don't pay your taxes, well, you got to go. That mayor and that council, they sure are set in their ways.
Where?
Oh, where?
Sure. If you move out of your house, where do you move to?
Oh, you move to another house. That mayor, he gets something under his bonnet, and you can't budge him.
Oh, then Mr. Myers has another house to move to.
No, not exactly.
Then where's he gonna move to?
Well, he'll move in with somebody who's got room for him.
Like us?
Well, no, not us.
Why not? We got an extra room.
Well, now, Opie, that extra room is for a relative who might come to visit us or a friend.
Mr. Myers is a friend. He's always been real nice to me.
Well, you see, Opie...
Well, if you're the one that's telling him to move, it looks like you ought to be the one to give him a place to move to.
Well, now, I'm not sure Frank would want to move in with us.
Why not ask him?
Well, you see, son...
Now, Opie, you just don't understand. You can't ask people to come and live with you.
What's eviction?
I think, I feel like this is, in terms of moral lack of reprehensibility, I think it's the best scene that Andy... Like, it's the Andy Griffith show at its moral best so far, I think, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So...
Yeah.
So
they kind of take the basic thing that, hey, maybe people shouldn't be homeless, which is a thing I can get behind.
Or they're sort of like taking, like, they take on that thing that people do in times of tragedy of just like, oh, that's a really sad thing that's happening over there, and it'd be inconvenient for me to engage with. Like,
yeah, so Opie kind of forces Andy's hand, essentially, completely absent-mindedly. He doesn't even make eye contact with his father this entire time, we should point out. He's staring at the toys. He does not actually care too much about what's happening. He's just like, well, this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. He's just asking questions and just, like, spitting bullshit and completely just, like, accidentally shames two adults.
And so they decide, all right, well, we've got a spare bedroom, we're going to take in Frank. And then Andy starts really playing and picking and grinning and the bluegrass playing. And I realize that's just because he was happy, but I like to think that maybe Andy's guitar playing ability stems directly from, like, how righteous he can be.
Yeah.
It's his, like, moral, like, level up bar.
Exactly.
It's like the health bar.
He has achieved bluegrass.
It's like there's going to be an episode where he does something really shitty and just like, I can't play! My hands feel like stone!
Alright, so...
so we're really, like, clipping through this.
So the next scene is, Andy and Opie come back from a fishing day, but they're already moving Frank into the guest room, which I'm just going to say, hideous guest room. Really horribly, like, tackily decorated. Hated that.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck you, Andy Griffith set designers.
Wait, we saw the guest room?
I thought they were just in the living room.
I thought that they were just, I thought they were just in the living room, too. I didn't think that they had a set for the guest room. Maybe just the living room looks hideous?
It is a hideous living room, and I think it might be a different living room than we've seen before. Actually, now that I think about it.
It actually could have been.
Yeah.
Now that you mention it.
Honest, the sets are like all black and white, so they all kind of blur together
they do,
for me.
Sort of.
But yeah, so they're moving Frank in, and they start on, like, the breakdown of Frank's valuables.
Right, they go through a box of stuff that, like, maybe Frank could sell.
He has, like, he breaks out his lockbox, and he's like, these are my valuables. These are really important for me to bring out of the house that I was just evicted of. And Andy was like, let's see what we can sell. Because it's, like, I feel like Andy's motivation isn't like, we're going to find something in this lockbox that's so valuable that you can afford to keep your house. It's like, let's find something in this lockbox that's valuable enough that we can get you a fucking hotel.
Yeah, so get you out of my house.
Yeah.
Which is not unreasonable.
Sure.
You can still be charitable and also not want to adopt a homeless person.
Yeah. No, it is a weird thing up until this point. Like, there's been a lot of hand-wringing on Andy's part and a lot of, like, you know, like, talk of morality. But it is still, like, weird to just see, like, the mayor, this, like, roly-poly little doof, just be like, send this old man to die! Like, because they are, like, Frank has no family, no ability to make money, no, like, way to support himself whatsoever, and, like, no, he doesn't have the faculties to find a new house. Like,
That's true.
He will 100% be, like, under a propped up piece of wood on the side of the highway, just not totally sure where he is within, like, 2 weeks.
So the mayor is an asshole that we've established.
Yeah.
And Frank himself is not really cognizant of the world. But here's my question, like, it's like Andy doesn't even consider what's going on until Opie points it out to him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what did he think was going to happen until he had to explain it to Opie? Like, that's the first thing.
He definitely knew it was going to happen. He just like, you know, felt like he didn't feel like he had to do something about it until, like, Opie said something, because he wants to be a good dad to Opie. Like, that's Andy Griffith's, like, redeeming quality that carries on despite all the other stuff that is, like, dated and horrifying from America's perspective.
I mean, he recognizes that the situation sucks and is immoral. Like, he's like, oh, this is really bad and I hate it. Like, the big clincher was when Opie was like, so where is he gonna go? And he was just like playing his guitar. Well, probably nowhere. He's probably going to die within a week. Oh, damn it. Oh, you got me, Opie. Really, really smart, logical trap. Like,
alright, so they go through the box, and if you were not certain that Frank has a little bit of dementia or is a little confused before, this scene really cinches it. Because they pull through, like, some of the stuff, and it's all worthless, but he figures out that it's worthless later, but he talks about it, like, he pulled out the World Fair medallion, is like, this is real copper, and it's very clearly not.
Yeah.
Right. And also, like, an anachronism, because the World's Fair, I believe, ended in 1913 rather than 14.
Okay,
that's good information to know.
God damn it, you always do more research than this. Also, how are you able to eyeball whether or not a thing is or is not common?
Yeah, how can you tell? It's black and white.
You said that with such confidence.
Yeah, we're really confident about that.
I said that because of Andy's reaction.
What's Andy's reaction? Did he...
Andy just kind of slides it away like, sure.
No,
I mean, even if it was made of copper, it's not like copper's that valuable, even in 1960.
It really felt like he was just sitting there like, and this is a very rare flattened penny.
Yeah.
We made a trade-in from an indentation into it.
No, he was like, it might as well have been like, oh, this is a laminated badge from Comic-Con.
Right.
That's real paper. Like, that's what it basically was. And Andy was like, okay, so who gives a shit?
Yeah. And like, what's the next thing? Because I remember one thing.
The Milwaukee Spoon.
Yeah.
Wait,
Okay, so this one...
Was it a pie server or was it an absinthe spoon?
He just said spoon,
but it's got holes in it. If it's a spoon, then it might actually be an absinthe spoon. I'm not sure if that would make sense for Milwaukee.
No, it was a pie server. It was big.
Yeah, it was big. It was too big to be a spoon, but it looked like somewhere between a pie server and an absinthe spoon.
I mean, it also may have been like a decorative spoon, like a commemorative plate. Okay, so let's clear this up. The next thing that Opie pulls out is a spoon. It's got holes in it that are in a pattern in its shape. And it's a giant. It looks like a pie server. You're correct.
I say it looks like an absinthe spoon.
And
they don't do absinthe in Milwaukee. You're thinking of Buffalo.
Okay.
Anyway, we keep saying Milwaukee because Frank says that it's a souvenir spoon and it's designed to look like the skyline of Milwaukee. And this one, you guys can't fucking call me out on. It doesn't look like a fucking skyline of anything.
No,
it's horseshit.
It's just a series of like small vague holes. Like
Yeah, it doesn't look like anything of anything. So that's like bullshit or made up.
Yeah.
There's other things are in there like a whalebone napkin ring, a button hook.
Yeah, like what?
A hook that you use to button books.
Wow.
I thought it was boots.
No, books.
Oh, books.
He says like book, and then he's like, books used to have buttons. I bet you're too young to know that, which I feel like I should have done some background research on that, because what? That doesn't make any sense.
That's a 99% invisible episode right there.
I guess because like if you're going to like close it and like button it closed, like like
a diary?
Like a diary has a clasp, maybe that was more common for some books. I don't know.
Why did you need a hook for that?
I don't hell if I know.
That's
leather stretches. I don't know why they need a hook.
That's bad shit.
All right, let's get to the plot of the episode.
Okay, yeah.
The thing that they pull out of the box is a savings bond worth for $100.
It's not immediately clear. It's not immediately clear whether it's a savings bond, what type of bond it is. And this definitely tripped me up.
All right, so it is a blank bond.
It is some sort of government bond
written for $100 at 8.5% interest. That is from 1861, so 100 years old.
Yes, and I have written in my notes in all caps, underlined. How do you forget you have something like that? Then again, he's basically a homeless hermit who thinks that making plastic hatberries is his life's calling, but still. Like, seriously.
There is a hint of what the deal was, because he's like, I had this framed, and I've been meaning to get it reframed. And the question is, like, why the fuck would you have a bond framed? That doesn't make any goddamn sense.
Like your first dollar that you earned?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, just like, oh yeah, no, here's some money that I could cash here in a frame. Like, it's... And everyone just, like... No one asks any follow-up questions. So, based off of the twist about the bond that is eventually revealed...
Right.
Everyone else should have asked a follow-up question of, like, why the fuck would a sensible person not cash this? And he's just like, I don't know, I'm senile as shit. I don't remember.
I'm old and eccentric.
Yeah.
Right.
So Andy sees that, he does, like, some math in his head, and he goes to the phone and is like, get me the bank immediately.
Right.
So...
Next scene, right, is in the mayor's office.
Right. The mayor is in a meeting, but he's, Andy enters with Frank, and is the banker in this one too?
Yeah, yes. So the banker and Andy enter with Frank.
The banker / treasurer of the town.
Yeah, whose name I will never, remember.
Oh, hang on, I have it right here. It's Harlan Fergus.
Oh, damn it, that first name sucks ass and that last name rules.
So yeah, Harlan Fergus is there, and he and Andy both seem to understand that they're in deep shit.
Yeah, and they bring in Frank, and they're like, all right, the mayor, here's Frank. And the mayor is like, get this piece of human garbage away from me. I don't give a shit.
I don't care about any of you. I can't talk about Frank.
Aren't you supposed to be in a box down by the river? Fuck off. Like, the mayor for this episode he's adorable, but he's an adorable monster.
Yes.
The mayor is, by all accounts, the fucking devil for this episode. And then just like, get him away from me. Why are we spending another second of thought on this human being? And then Harlan Fergus is like, yeah, you're gonna want to make a lot of time for this fucking guy.
Yeah.
So, according to the computational machines down at the bank, and as Andy points out, and they're good machines.
Ian, do you
have to say, the figure that they come up with is exactly accurate.
Ian, do you want to do your sinister version of Andy Griffith? Those good computational machines.
Those good computational machines.
I love it.
He's got the best.
I love it.
Yeah, he's got the best Southern accent.
My dad was from Asheville. I know how people from there talk.
Anyway, so the computation machines say that they owe, and like we've $249,119.27. And normally at this point, this is where we're like, oh shit, let's figure out what that is. But I don't need to do that right now because the ultra-reliable Mayberry Wiki has already done it for me.
Oh shit, okay. I thought I was going to be the one contributing this, but tell us how much that is worth in $2018.
In $2017.
$2017.
It is, I'll just round it. It's $2.8 million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which is actually, for a one-street town, that's actually a big fucking problem.
That's a huge problem.
Yeah, that would be a big fucking problem for a relatively large city. Like, the city that we are currently doing this podcast in, it would be a problem. Let me just make that clear.
Yeah, you couldn't pull $3 million out of our budget without somebody going, wait a second.
Yeah.
Without some, municipal employee running into traffic.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's like $2.8 million. And they even say that the whole town only has $5,000 total.
Yeah.
Which does seem low for 1961, but okay.
Yeah.
I think the town has an extremely slim operating budget. They basically just need to pay Andy and Barney and everything else just
and the mayor.
And the mayor.
Yeah.
Although, fuck. So they
you
really
can pay the mayor in honey. And
they pay the mayor in peeps.
Yeah, so, and they're like, oh shit, the town is now underwater, and then, the next scene that we see Myers in, he's, sitting down on his couch, smoking a cigar like Tony Soprano.
He's smoking a cigar like Tony Soprano with the most vacant expression. He's the eyes of a goldfish, just absent-mindedly puffing while having still only a 45% understanding of what the fuck is going on.
He knows that they owe him money.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just, they offer a settlement, and it wasn't $5,000, it was $10,000, right? Because he says that the $10,000 will make a nice down payment on the money that he...
Right, the $10,000 would make a nice down payment on what he owes them. But, I need to make it clear here. At this point in the story, based on these facts, as a lawyer, Frank Myers needs a lawyer, okay? Because, it's too bad that lawyers appear non-existent in Mayberry, at least in the episodes that I've watched.
They've been, mentioned in passing.
Right, but
it's been said that
they don't actually seem to, physically exist.
It's been said that they had to take, other jobs because there's no work for them.
Right. Okay.
I feel like in between episodes, there's a guy hi, I'm a practicing attorney. I want to move to Mayberry. And Andy's like, you get out of here!
Yeah.
You go!
There are, 28 bodies of attorneys that tried to move into town buried in Mayberry Creek.
Yeah, so they just have, farmers that happen to have law degrees.
Yeah. At this point in the story, based on these facts, Frank Myers definitely needs a lawyer because he's kind of got Mayberry by the balls. Or by the berries, I guess, in Frank's case.
Well done!
So...
You did a good, Ian.
Because, basically, here's the thing, alright? Municipal bankruptcy is a relatively rare thing. It happens, in California, it's a problem because it's, there's apparently there's statutes in California that towns have a cap in terms of how much taxes what their tax rate can be. And that's created problems both in creating municipal bankruptcies, and also it's helped fuel the housing crisis because they can't, as easily raise taxes on land. Sorry. I'm not licensed in California, though, so I don't necessarily know the specifics of this. But, like, you know, cities in bankruptcy, they don't have to pay creditors while they negotiate ways to handle its debts. But on the flip side, the whole fact that the city's got the power to collect taxes, which is kind of what, like, led them to evict Frank in the first place, their power to collect taxes means that cities generally have a really fucking hard time convincing a judge that they can't legitimately pay their debts because they've got that income stream. So they're in a fucking pickle here because it's really hard for them to say, we have no means of paying this enormous bankrupting bill. Because, I mean, a bond is essentially just, it's like a check or it's like a promissory note just from the government. It's a pretty ironclad contract. You know, if somebody owns a government bond, the government literally owes them money.
If the town can't pay it, this was the thing I was, like, kind of raising an eyebrow at.
Yeah.
If the town can't pay it, it doesn't just get, like, kicked up the line to the state.
It depends on the type of bond, first off.
Mm-hmm.
Yes and no. Basically, like, what would most likely happen, kind of in a modern situation, if, like, say, somebody, like, in an Eastern Coast American city, like, woke up and had a ancient bond from the city, because usually, like, the way I envisioned this is that back when America was expanding out from the East Coast, out west, through the Midwest, to the West Coast, like, you know, towns needed ways to, like, raise money, and that was one of the ways. Bonds were a lot more common back when, you know, there was an American frontier.
Yeah.
It was basically a way of investing in your own community and stuff like that. It was a serious thing. Mm-hmm. Hypothetically, what would most likely happen is some sort of settlement where they wouldn't have to pay him in one lump sum, but it would kind of be like what Frank proposed, is that they would pay him a down payment, and then they would make, you know, monthly payments in probably the form of an annuity, is what he would likely get. But
he would probably die before they paid him off.
He would probably die before they paid him off, but his estate would sure own it, and that's why he needs a fucking lawyer, okay?
But the arrangement that they come to is Andy just, like, walks up to Frank later and just says, like, they can't pay. Like,
Right. He seems to let that go really easily. And, I do have written down here that, like, Mayberry might be able to apply for relief from the state depending on how TV Land, North Carolina's laws are written. But, like, Myers gives up way too quickly. He could get the money with a lawyer or get a lot of it depending on the settlement. Very easily. This is a pretty ironclad contract.
Like, or work out a settlement where he just doesn't have to pay his mortgage ever again.
Well, that's a different thing, because the city of Mayberry owes him money. His mortgage is owned by the bank.
Right.
Two different things. So it's not like the bank and the city of Mayberry are necessarily the same institution. They're treated like the same institution.
When Frank tries to cash the bond, the mayor goes like, Harlan, you cash it with your bank. And Harlan's response is that's not my bank's responsibility. It's, fuck you! Like, no!
Yeah.
I don't wanna!
Right, and I mean, it's like, I can't remember what exactly Harlan's response is, but, like, that also seems kind of wrong, because it's not the bank that would be paying it, it's the city treasury.
Yeah. No, the mayor...
I mean, Harlan has his hands in both purses, but, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
The mayor doesn't totally understand the difference between those two things.
I mean, to be fair, they are kind of all blurry.
Right? Yeah.
Not a whole lot of separation of powers in Mayberry.
Yeah.
Mayberry is, like, operating in, like, a corporatist state, where there is, like, a very, like, ominous intermingling between business and government.
Right,
so
yeah. It's semi-fascist. And I mean, I don't know a ton about, like, government bonds and stuff like that, but I would imagine that, well, then again, if it was issued in the mid-1800s, it might not have, but I would imagine a lot of government bonds have, like, a sunset provision where the interest stops accruing.
That was what Frank assumed.
Uh-huh.
He said, like, well, this...
That is what he assumed.
Yeah, he was like...
in modern days, that might be true.
Yeah, he was like, I definitely can't cash this because it's definitely expired. And Andy goes like, there's no expiration date on this.
Yeah.
Which did happen in very specific circumstances, which relate to the twist.
Oh, right.
All right,
okay.
Yeah.
So, let's go ahead and skip to the scene we've already kind of discussed, where basically Andy walks in and says the town can't pay, and Frank is, like, a little bit upset, but he's not upset enough to, like, lawyer up and be like, give me my damn money.
He gives up way too easily.
He's upset.
He has the town by the balls.
Yeah.
He's upset because, and this is back to that first scene, he wanted to clean up his place and make it so the town wouldn't be ashamed of his house. You stupid old man.
Yeah.
You stupid old man.
Yeah, the lawyer in me is like really pissed off at this client right now.
No, Andy is very clearly taking like advantage of a confused old man. Where Harlan's like Arlen, he walks in and Frank is on Sky Mall basically. Like,
Yes.
He's like, I'm gonna buy
is true.
this and this and this.
He's got like 3 Roblox catalogs, Sears Roblox catalogs in front of him. He's sitting on a Sears Roblox catalog by this
Yeah, and Andy just comes in and be like, hey, Frank, you can't buy those things because the town can't pay you. And he's like, they can't? He's like, no, they definitely factually can't. Like, and there's no recourse and you're never going to get the money.
Yeah, like that's the thing. That's why he needs a lawyer because, like, functionally, yes, they can't pay him in all one lump settlement. In terms of they can't, but there's no such thing in terms of, like, contract law of, like, I can't pay, oh well. Nope. Not true, especially when it's a fucking city that has the power to levy taxes.
And like Andy is sort of committing like almost elder abuse here. Like he's using his professional authority as like a trusted person in Frank's life and also like an authority figure to tell him a thing that is factually untrue.
Basically Stan Lee's manager at this point.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Stan the Man.
Oh, that's wow.
That was our one
That's
one
a little
tribute.
too soon.
Instead of taking any logical deal,
Andy's solution is to extreme home makeover Frank's place.
he basically turns in the $2.8 million that they owe him, and in exchange for like a weekend's worth of slave labor.
Okay, and by the way, I have to just mention, like, I have in my notes.
Maybe not the best phrase to use.
I have in my notes, where did this place get a curb? Because when they're done, the place had a curb, and before it was a dirt road in the middle of the woods.
The best part is Frank says, like, after they do the manual labor, he's like, it doesn't look like the same place.
It literally isn't.
They got a different set. It was in a different. It's a different shaped house.
So you've got the money to build a new road,
right?
To install a sidewalk,
and to give Frank a second story. Like, they build a new. Like, I guess he did get his money's worth because a couple of like pudgy old men built him a new house on top of his house.
Yeah, did we mention that, like, the people who are actually doing the work are the mayor and the city council and the bank employees for some reason?
They didn't even pay day laborers or any shit.
They could just hire some handymen. We know that handymen travel through.
Yep.
Yeah, all the time. And they were just like, we need to do this paying no money whatsoever. Me, an old man, will paint a house with my arms that don't totally work.
There is a good little bit here where, like, the mayor's throwing a temper tantrum because Harlan painted 2 windows and the mayor painted 3.
Yeah.
And Andy says, well, that makes sense. You always have been known to spread it on more than other people. Wank, wank. Which I think of the phrase saying, you
spread on the bullshit.
Yeah.
And it goes up over the mayor's head, much like, most frisbees. And any tennis ball.
Yeah. Which are frequently thrown at him. Just during general meetings. Whenever he starts to ask questions like, wait, why are we doing this? Someone's just like, tennis ball.
Go get it, boy!
Just, oh! Then he, like, scampers after it.
I'll get it.
But yeah, they just do, like, an afternoon of, like, moderate labor to, like, clean a yard.
It. That is $3 million worth of chores on the to-do lists.
And they make a big thing like, we gave you a new mailbox.
He definitely got the shit end of this settlement.
Yeah, 100%.
So what happens is Frank asks to borrow a little bit of the spare paint, which, I mean, it's your fucking paint, bro.
Yeah.
He asks to borrow the spare bit of paint so he can, like, do a touch-up on the frame of his great-great-granddaddy's portrait, which shows him shaking hands with General Robert E. Lee.
And I have this, I was in my notes, as I was watching this episode, I had that written down with a ...
Yeah. Honestly, like, I was feeling really good about this episode because I was like, it was all like, like financial justice and like helping your fellow neighbor. And helping your fellow neighbor, and it felt like sort of like the Andy Griffith Show had like shown up on my lawn, be like, I've changed, I'm socially conscious now. And then when I was like, all right, I'm letting you into my heart, it just like punched me in the stomach. It was like, yeah, take that, nerd, the South.
It's actually probably the first time I think they've just screamed like, we are the South, specifically the South, not any other rural area, the South specifically. R.I.P. Roy Clark of Hee Haw. Who also died this week.
Really laying it on with the death this week, huh?
Yeah, right?
Any other notable tragedies that you want to throw out?
Your love life.
Yeah, who's the Princess Bride guy?
William Goldman.
Yeah, no, edit that in so like you just said William Goldman. Like the M. Night Shyamalan twist is, hey, the Confederacy.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically, as soon as he says Robert E. Lee, Harlan Fergus...
Everyone just, like, is like, wait a minute!
Yeah.
Wait a damn minute!
And this twist makes everything make sense, because the reason that the bond was framed was because it was worthless, because it was Confederate.
Well, maybe.
Interesting. Oh, why the bond might actually have value?
Like, this is my thing, alright? This is what I was, this is where you get your money's worth, okay? So, alright, so...
So, just to be clear, you are our legal counsel.
You are our legal counsel.
From what you just said.
I'm your legal guest
This
star,
is a legally binding podcast.
Alright, so, up until this point, Myers was in a pretty goddamn good position, and he totally torpedoed this by mentioning the Robert E. Lee thing. Because this sort of holds up, alright? Because here's the thing, alright? It's pretty ironclad, not that it's... And it's not just in terms of, like, the Confederacy, the Confederate States of America doesn't exist anymore, and it's not a real country anymore, so, that money can't be worth anything. No. It's in the Constitution, because the, amendments that were passed during Reconstruction, after the Civil War, there was the 13th Amendment, which said, nobody can be, be made a slave except as punishment except as punishment for a crime. Yeah, asterisk. Then there's the 14th Amendment, which is the Due Process Clause, and the substantive due process, whereas, everything that we haven't talked about, in terms of substantive rights and due process is reserved to the states. It doesn't get absorbed by the federal government. But there's a fourth section that nobody really talks about that much because it doesn't really apply that much anymore, which is all about debt. Which makes it pretty clear that the Union, and it says that the position of the United States that neither the Union nor any state shall assume or pay any debt or obligation incurred in aid of insurrection or rebellion against the United States. All such debts shall be illegal and void. As a matter of constitutional law, the Union made it very, very clear, if you gave money to the Confederacy, no, you're not going to get paid back. We fucking beat them. They were trying to beat us. You paid for slavery. Guess you backed the wrong horse. Sit and spin, motherfuckers.
Cool.
So,
Understandable.
Alright.
Isn't that what the Southerners blame as, the fault of Reconstruction?
What?
Essentially? When we talk about, the South will rise again and the massive, debt that they accrued and the, poverty levels that happened or during and after Reconstruction. Is that what the South is referring to, what they're so bitter about? What, say, a North Carolina would be very bitter about 100 years later?
Well, yes and no. As a matter, the way that the Section 4 of Amendment 14 is written is that it says, all such debts be illegal and void. Alright? So, in other words, that basically means they are nullity. They don't exist. So, it's not like the federal government didn't pay them and they fell and, the effects of the default fell back onto people living in the South. That's not the thing. It's basically from a legal perspective, the government is saying, when those debts were made, they were illegal. They're still illegal. We're not paying them. You're not getting paid. You backed the wrong horse by. Mm-hmm. So yes and no. I mean, there's a lot of things about Reconstruction that definitely, a lot of the thing about Reconstruction and about the South will rise again and stuff like that is because their economy, depended on slave labor. They had an incredibly rich economy because they had a fantastically fertile agrarian, complex that they didn't have to pay labor for. Yeah. It made them one of the richest regions in the world. You want to talk about, things, going on that still culturally persist in the South today. About, especially in North Carolina, about things like voter suppression and gerrymandering and stuff like that. This is because the economy of the slave-owning South, it was stratified, in terms of, the slaves were on the bottom and stuff like that, and there was a underclass of white people who didn't own land or slaves. And then there was a slave-owning class. And then on top of that, there was kind of a 1% that were kind of like the Walmarts of the slave-owning class that owned the big plantations. And those are the people that created this big culture of anti-democracy that were like, we really hate this democracy thing because there were abolitionists in the South. And the thing is that, like, they invented voter suppression in the South back then, alright? Because, people who didn't own land were like, I don't want to vote against my landlord's interest because I might get kicked out of my house.
And the slavery had the massive effect of consolidating wealth.
Yes, absolutely.
No, because you since laborers weren't being paid, there was essentially no equivalent of the middle class in that
Definitely,
that area.
Absolutely. And so, you get this thing in terms of, the Southern plantation slave-owning 1% culture where they're where you get a lot this vibe that's kind of really opposed to democracy and even wanting return to primogeniture in other words, they want to go back to a feudal system where everything just stays in the family. If you want to look at the cultural roots of a lot of the stuff that's happening in Georgia and North Carolina right now, you look at that and that culture and being real pissed off at losing that. All right. So the issue here, though, is whether this is a Confederate bond or whether this is a municipal bond, because they could be different. Because as I said, all right, when towns were developing and expanding across the frontier, you could have a municipal bond where it's you're investing in the town. You're lending the town money in a couple decades or so, or whenever. You can cash this bond and stuff like that. That's one type of bond, which was basically for the town itself. Then there's other types, which would be a Confederate war bond, which, they had in the Civil War. They had, leading up until World War II, you could buy war bonds and stuff like that, which were explicitly for the federal government for the purpose of raising money for war.
So the thing is, there's a point for and against in terms of that. Frank says that the bond was bought specifically in the context of the town.
Yes, which points towards a municipal bond.
But the lack of an expiration point points to it being a war bond. Because towards the end of the war, that's the kind of bonds that the Confederacy was putting out, because they were desperate for any sort of money.
Sure.
So they were putting out complete junk bonds that were a complete raw deal, just because they were trying to stay alive.
Sure. But remember, the Civil War ended in 1865. The date of the bond was 1861, if I remember right.
Yes.
You said that with a lot of confidence, so we're going to say yes.
All right,
he's correct.
So here's the thing, all right? North Carolina was not among the first states to secede. All right, mm-hmm. It entered the Confederacy May 20th, 1861. Even if it wasn't a municipal bond, if the bond was taken out before this time, he might still have a good argument that it was valid. All right, and not covered by the 14th Amendment, because that was before secession, before the North Carolina seceded. All right, then he would still have a good argument. If it's afterwards, and especially if it's in the context of a Confederate bond rather than a municipal bond, he's fucked, and they're right.
So he has, a shot still.
He could have a shot. I don't know enough about the bond. We never get to see it. We never get to look at it.
And no one does, except Andy.
Yeah, Andy, yeah.
That's, so, and they find this out and they immediately start, circling, and they're like, we have the high ground now.
Yeah, the vultures that are the city council fuck you, Frank!
Yes.
Now you still owe us money, and guess what? Your house has higher property value now!
Yeah,
your taxes are higher, dick!
Their, response should have been alright, so we're gonna walk away from you and lawyer the fuck up, Yeah, because now it's a court case rather than it just being, eat shit. Their immediate posture is we're gonna kick your ass.
Well, yeah.
But because this is Mayberry, and because everything can be, solved with a stern lecture from Andy Griffith.
Yes.
That's exactly what happens. Andy gives them all a stern lecture about, their hypocrisy, even though his hypocrisy had to be, pointed out to him by a small child, not 2 days earlier. But he gives them a lecture, and he says, well, now you've got this all fixed up, and people are going to come through here, and they're going to say, wow, what a wonderful town, because they'll see this beautiful house that we all put our effort into. And as if right on cue.
Almost eerily on cue.
Like he had called them beforehand and set this up.
Yeah.
A couple of tourists drive up in a convertible and say, hello, is there, in the same, weird robot voice that all out-of-towners have.
I almost
hello,
forgot these people.
Is there a hotel in this charming town of yours?
They all talk like fucking speaking spells.
They all talk like aliens who are just getting used to human language.
Yeah.
They talk like, remember in like computer class when you figured out that you could do text to speech?
Yeah,
They all
yeah.
sound like that, like right before you figured out that you could make them swear.
God, that brings back memory.
This is actually my favorite part of the episode, though, is Andy gives them directions to Jason's hotel, and then says, "By the way, did you happen to decide to stop here in this charming town because of this beautiful landmark of a house that you saw?" And they just give him this look like, what the fuck are you talking about?
They're like,
you weird man.
And then they ask, isn't this some other town?
Isn't this like Eagleton or something?
Yeah, they made it. It's
No,
actually
it's-
Elm City, but yeah.
Yeah.
And then they're like, no, it's Mayberry, and they're like, well, we're getting the fuck out of
Yeah.
here.
And then they drive
Sit
off.
and spin!
Yeah.
and then they leave.
Yeah.
That's it. And that's the end of the episode. And then we have the stinger.
The stinger, which, alright, I want to talk about the fact that this has been, reframed in the stinger, that, they come into the mayor's office and Andy is like, hey, Frank has a really cool thing for you. It's a letter from the president. And then Frank just goes like, Jefferson Davis!
Yeah, this show has a really weirdly casual and light relationship with the Confederacy.
Andy and the mayor are both uncomfortable. Andy's like, oh.
No, Andy's chill about it. Remember that when it was revealed that that Frank's great-great-grandfather was shaking hands with Robert E. Lee?
They're
someone was like,
as a Southern man only would, or
yeah,
something
exactly.
like that.
Yeah, Andy says, of course it's Robert E. Lee. Who else would a Southerner be posing with?
The mayor is uncomfortable. The mayor, hears, here's Jefferson Davis and is like, ooh.
Yeah.
And Andy's like, this is fine. I'm gonna get him out of here.
Yeah, and that's it. And that's the end of the
And
episode.
then Frank just goes and, maybe, I guess, goes and be's homeless.
Yeah, and Frank is off to live in his home rent-free and just be a violent racist.
Yeah.
I guess.
Frank is off to have some really bad opinions about race.
Yeah.
And then die.
Yeah.
I guess.
R.I.P. Frank.
Nope, we're just racking up casualties in this episode.
I mean, that guy's probably dead by now.
Oh,
certainly.
He looks like he died
so-
the second they stopped filming. He was they're like, and cut. Finally, I can move on.
Yeah.
Alright, so, and apparently Don Knotts had the week off, I guess.
Yeah, this is the only this is an episode where Barney appears nowhere. I guess he was busy being bamboozled by the hussy in the next episode.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He was being distracted by a shiny object for the duration of the episode. Also, I tried to do a little bit of preparation for this, and I talked to my friend who is a social worker who works with the elderly, and was like, okay, so in a modern day setting, what would happen if a mentally unfit older man was unable to pay his mortgage? And I was expecting HUD would step in and he'd probably be transferred into assisted living. And he was just like, he'd probably be evicted and just kind of kicked out onto the street. I was really expecting let's look at how far we've come and all the government procedures that would kick in this situation. It was just he'd die.
Were you, though? Were you really expecting that?
Yeah. I was expecting something.
America.
I was expecting a slight, it would be okay, we go into I don't know, assisted living or some shit. There would be a government transition. But it was just no, he died. That's a dead man that you're describing to me.
Alright, so on that note, let's go to our ratings, guys. Alright, so Andy Meter, how good is this episode? How much did you actually enjoy watching it? I'm gonna say 7. There were a couple of bits that made me laugh.
I started to analyze it as kind of just a fact pattern, and then when the Confederacy thing came in, I just kind of threw my hands up and was like, okay, I guess I'm talking about the Constitution now.
Yeah,
I guess I'll give it a 6.
It's funny at times.
It was funny, I guess.
This first half of season 2 is full of episodes where it's it's not technically bad. And because there were some bad episodes in season 1.
It's honestly, it's one of the weird things about episodes in season 2 where it doesn't feel like I'm watching a TV show. It feels like I'm just watching a thing that happened.
I mean, like, I did have a note about this that I wrote down. It's kind of, has Andy changed over the course of the show to become more mature? Because I remember when I was, like, I was doing some, like, to refresh myself, I was kind of reading the Wikipedia page, and there was something where, like, Griffith himself actually made a mention where he caught the show on reruns, and he decided to kind of change his character, where over the course of the show, Andy becomes a bit more kind of, like, well-spoken, a bit more of the father figure, a bit more mature, a bit more Lincoln-esque. Rather than necessarily part of the gag.
He's the fulcrum around the craziness of Mayberry revolves.
And we're definitely seeing this. I'm definitely seeing this, and he's definitely becoming more of the stoic dad figure.
Yeah,
and
he's the voice of reason and justice here.
I don't think season 1 Andy would have like given these kind of like stern lectures. Season 1 Andy is definitely, like you said, part of the gag. He's definitely a little sillier, a little more goofy, and a little bit more willing to go into the craziness and be part of it and actually instigate it. Whereas in this episode and the next episode, we see him like waiting patiently and just giving advice while everyone else. We talked about King of the Hill as an example. The latter episodes of King of the Hill where they dialed up the crazy on everybody. In fact, there's literally a King of the Hill episode called Hank Fixes Everything, where you just make your main character that position to fix everyone else's problem.
Holy shit. Like, the more I think about this, the more I think that we should do, like, that we should try to find an episode of Andy Griffith and an episode of King of the Hill that are remarkably similar and do and do some sort of analysis of, like, parallels.
It would be
definitely
very
in the
easy
process of that search.
Because, number one, all King of the Hill is now on Hulu, which rules.
Oh, nice.
But King of the Hill is probably one of the closest things I can think of to a contemporary analog to the Andy Griffith show.
That's just what I was thinking.
Yeah. I think we've transitioned in season 2. Like, season 1, it switches back and forth. Like, I'm laughing with Andy or I'm laughing at Andy.
Yeah.
Or I'm supposed to be laughing with Andy. We are now in full territory of, like, I'm consistently supposed to be laughing with Andy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Andy has not been the butt of the joke in a while.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the key difference there. By the way, Dan, you still have not said how good this episode is.
Oh, yeah. 6.
I think we're all going to say 6.
Yeah.
6 is fine. And then as far as, like, moral reprehensibility goes, like, our FIFO meter...
This one's
really weird. It's more just, like a legal angle and, like, how capable you think Frank is depends on this. I don't think Frank is all that capable of anything, and I think this is a group of people, like, shafting an old man who does not know what is happening. So I'm going to say this is, like, a 7 on the, like, shit meter for me.
Again, this episode feels like the Andy Griffith Show showed up on my lawn with a boombox, like John, like
I'm all out of love.
Exactly, like,
I'm sorry off without you.
Take me back, I've changed, and then just promptly throws up on my couch, like,
oh, the racism.
Yeah, exactly.
From now on, like, anytime you see these characters do anything, and you probably should have thought about it beforehand, but you just have to, like, in the back of your mind, know, oh, also, they're probably violently racist.
Yeah, like, it's like, that's like the thing. You've got, like, this whole kind of, in the first half, you've got this, like, social justice thing where it's, like, this doddering old man getting abused by these, like, Mr. Potter and It's a Wonderful Life kind of figures.
Yeah!
And then it turns out that, like, his one escape valve was financed by slavery.
Exactly! Like, they open it's the most, the front end is the most morally virtuous that the Andy show has ever been, and then the back end, they open the Pandora's box on racism! Like, that's, like, welcome to the party, racism! I'm surprised it took you this long!
What was great about it is, like, it's the most racist you can be without actually mentioning race.
Yeah.
Ever.
Yes! Has there been a person of color in this show yet?
Twice? They did not have speaking lines.
They did not say anything.
Alright.
That one of them got a facial expression.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright, they at least got to react.
Yeah. But yeah, no, so I don't know. Okay, the first half of this episode is a 0 and the second half is a 10.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with that. I guess
you gotta even it out.
A split it's a 5, I guess.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
I feel like the racism, like makes a bell curve a little bit, but
yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And
I guess, like, wait, so I already said 6 for Andy's, and I guess, like, the moral reprehensibility, like, the first half, like, it was a really interesting legal problem for me, and then the second half, it was like, well, shit. So, I don't know, like, maybe a 4, I guess.
Alright,
that's fair. Alright, so that's gonna wrap it up for us here on Breaking Mayberry. Don't forget, you can follow us on Twitter. We're on Twitter at twitter.com/breakmayberry, on facebook.com/breakingmayberry. You can email us with any thoughts or explanations of obscure Confederate law at breakingmayberry@gmail.com. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, give reviews, etc., etc. And you can also help us out on patreon.com/breakingmayberry. That is it for us. Our opening music is done by Max Ludwig, who is on the internet at Sleep Talkie. Our logo was designed by Emily Christina on Instagram. That's Scribble Emily. Do we have anything else?
I think that's it. We did a shitload of housekeeping up front.
We did all the stuff up front. So, yes, that's it for us. Ian, thanks for being with us today.
Of course, it's been a pleasure.
We will see you all down at the fishing hole.
Y'all come back now. I get a bunch of free shit, and I also get to tase a crying person. Fuck yeah!
Eminent domain, motherfuckers!
Yeah.
No, that's not the right
No,
phrase.
it's not eminent domain. If they were trying to build a highway through the house, then it would be
What-
eminent
what-
domain. This is just foreclosure.
No, what's the phrase for police seizure, like when
Civil
Asset-
asset forfeiture, and
Okay.
that's also not this. Just because as far as we know, Frank Myers has not committed a crime.
Okay.
I'm cutting all of that out.
Yeah. Of just you not knowing what, like, any law shit is.
At all.